Hello, everybody. It's been a really long time since I made a personal video. The last video I did was the Wienerville 30th anniversary, and that was going to be my last video for a long time. Basically, because I'm working with the Splat Attack podcast, and it's been a tremendous ride. I've loved every second of it. If that's an interest to anyone, and if you want to see what I've been up to, along with some really great people, check out the Splat Attack podcast below in the description. But for right now, I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's incredibly difficult news. I learned, along with a lot of people and supporters out there, that George Lowe has passed away. And it's enormously difficult. No words can really describe how I feel about this and how a lot of other people feel about this. But back in 2016, I made a tribute for Clay Croker, who passed away. And that was extremely difficult too, because I looked up to that guy as well, with not just his amazing voices, but his comedic timing, his animations, his drawings. I mean, I took that upon myself to learn how to draw from his drawings and illustrations. It's tremendous. And George, it's incredible. He pretty much breathed life into a character that was not very popular. And for George, it's one of my earliest memories. Like, I remember first seeing Space Ghost at the end of the Mask VHS, and that was incredible. It was like something I've never seen before. Something about that just resonated with me, and I loved the way it sounded. I loved the way it looked, and how just peculiar everything was. It was just so neat and fascinating. And it was back in the day when no one got Cartoon Network. You had to order it online, or not online, but you had to order it like through the phone. Sometime in 1996, that's when Cartoon Network started to be available for regular cable. And I remember first seeing, I think, snippets of Cartoon Planet. And then I finally saw it. It was like, oh my god, this is at the end of The Mask. And it was Brack and Space Ghost singing songs, because it was Cartoon Planet. It was on prime time. It was like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't Coast to Coast that was at the end of the Mask video, because that was on later, much later, at 11 o'clock. They were sort of in the middle of their third season, and I remember staying up late, and it was difficult. It was so difficult staying up till 11. I had to beg my parents for this. And then I finally did it, and my very first Coast to Coast episode was Chirac. For those of you who don't know what that episode is, it's an episode that is a tribute to the music of the show, who was done by Sonny Chirac. In other words, there's no dialogue in that episode, there is just music, and then towards the end of the episode, there's a please stand by screen that is for like 2.5 minutes. I didn't know what I was watching. Maybe I thought I was delirious, because I remember it was really difficult staying up that late for me. Amazingly, I finally got to dip my feet in Coast to Coast, because Coast to Coast got more popular, that it was on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. And I was like, this is great. I finally get to see the show, and I don't have to stay up super late to watch it. But other than Space Ghost, George Lowe is an amazing guy. I only met him twice, but I've seen so many interviews and behind the scenes stuff with him that I call him a maverick, because he is ingenious with his wit, his comedy, and his intelligence. He's a very smart guy. There's even an episode on the Adult Swim podcast that I would suggest people listen to, and it explained that George was kind of practicing being a doctor in a way. This was back in like the 70s. A friend of his could call him up and help him with x-rays. It's like he would like call him up after he's doing like a voiceover, or if he's working on the radio. And he would call him up and he would be like, hold on, I'll be right there. And it was just so exciting. George was incredible. A lot of people credit Robin Williams for his great improv skills, like, mile a minute wit with comedy. and extremely great improvisation. But George does that in spades as well. He visited conventions and loved to shake people's hands and meet them. Whenever he would sign a signature, it would be like everything would be completely original. I unfortunately don't have any of my signatures with me, but I do remember one thing that he wrote for everything that he signed. He would always write snack tip, and it would be completely something different. For those of you who don't know, George Lowe is like a foodie. He loves his food. And in fact, he was telling once that when he was interviewing David Byrne for the show, that they were having a conversation about death and how whenever he died, he wanted there to be a salad bar for a reminder to show that maybe people should start eating healthy because I know I didn't. And that would be George. He would just be hilarious and he would be completely original with his delivery. And he definitely loved his mom. He lost his mom in 2018. And for those of you who don't know, he absolutely adored her. He had such a great relationship with her, and it devastated him. On the Adult Swim podcast episode, which I will link below, it explains the process that he went through finding the last outfit that his mom would wear. And the most amazing thing about that, and I don't want to give too much away because I want you to listen to it, is that he is an avid art collector and he is an artist in his own right. He didn't have the money, so he gave a Picasso that he owned as collateral. And it blew the bank away. So it's tremendous. And he was able to pay back the money that he borrowed in, I think it was 60 days. I could be wrong, but he was able to pay back the bank in that short amount of time. So he did like a tour where he was meeting people, going to different conventions, and that's how he was able to pay that back. Towards the end, he had his dog, and he loved feeding his squirrels. That was one of the things that I'm referencing was Low Country, which was a pilot that Adult Swim was working on, and it was pretty much a day in the life of George Lowe. And it's another great watch. I'll see if I could find that and link that in the description as well. It shows you like a little bit of the inside of George and how he is. When I met him, it was tremendously amazing. This was like 2 weeks after the last episode of Coast to Coast aired, was April of 2004. He was so nice. I remember I was freaked out when I met him. And he literally took me by the hand and said, "I'll be the fan and you're the one who's going to meet me." It was hilarious. And I have a picture of him shaking my hand, acting like he's the fan meeting me. Oh, God, it's amazing. I still remember that so vividly, even though that was over 20 years ago. It just shows what a class act George is. And if you listen to the Space Ghost commentaries, it has George riff-raffing through Clay Croker, Dave Willis, Matt Malero, even a little bit of Michael Azzo, too. And it just shows like what type of a relationship he made with these people. And I would say to this, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, without that show, there would be no Adult Swim. There would be no Aqua Teen. There would be no late night block because Space Ghost Coast to Coast was the show that invented that. I want to keep on fighting that till the day I die. It's besides the Wienerville show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast is a show that I adapted to, and when I was growing up, I was the only fan of that show that I knew. I didn't know any other fans up until I was in high school. So that connected me with my friend group that I still have today, which I'm thankful for. And it's devastating that George Lowe is gone, but the silver lining is that MC Chris mentioned that his health was not in good condition. So I know it was possibly really tough living these final days because he hasn't been on social media for the last, I think, months or possibly the last year. So at least the comforting thing is that he's no longer suffering and he is with his mom right now. And I think that's beautiful. alongside, he's there with Clay Croker now. So possibly they're hanging out, barbecuing right now, and they're giving each other some shit. So cheers to George, and see you on the other side, buddy.